Hello and welcome to the Rogers Brief. I'm Adam Rogers. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. Today I'm going to be covering Day 11 of the Mass Casualty Commission proceedings. The proceedings wrapped up about 11:30 this morning after starting at their usual time of 9:30. There were two presentations made by Commission Counsel Roger Burrill on foundational documents. These two documents and presentations covered firstly movements in and around the Glenholme area, and then the second foundational document covered the two killings in the Plains Road vicinity of DeBert, the killings of Kristen Beaton and Heather O'Brien, both of whom worked for the Victoria Order of Nursing. It was certainly an emotional day in many ways, a solemn presentation from Commission Counsel Burrill, and certainly the remarks from Commissioner, former Chief Justice Michael MacDonald were also quite solemn. It was one of those days. Of course, there's many such moments in the Commission proceedings. The Glenholme foundational document picked up where we left off after the killing of Lillian Campbell. It was interesting yesterday. On day 10 there were targeted killings, it would seem, of Alana Jenkins and Sean McLeod. The killer knew them, had visited with them previously. On the other hand, Lillian Campbell, who was just out for a walk, unknown to the killer, they didn't know each other at all. It seemed to be just an opportunity for the killer to eliminate a potential witness to the fact that the RCMP vehicle, the mock vehicle, was driving around that area in Wentworth. So today, similar in a way. The first foundational document in Glenholme, there were no killings, although there was a visit to the Fishers, Adam and Carol Fisher, with whom the killer was slightly acquainted. He had Mr. Fisher bid on some excavating work at his property. The killer had been to their home on one occasion and had, not much, but seemingly cordial, relationship with them some years previously. So, but then with the killings of Kristen Beaton and Heather O'Brien, there was no connection whatsoever to them that we seem to be aware of, and those seem to be either at random, just as part of a killing spree, or else perhaps some effort on the part of the killer to distract the police into dealing with those situations while he moved on into the Truro area and then onwards to Halifax or Dartmouth, where I know Miss Banfield indicated that he had intended to go eventually. Never of course arrived there. The first part of significance in the Glenholme document was that there was a very close near miss or near opportunity for the RCMP to catch Gabriel Wortman about 9:45 a.m. on Sunday morning, when Corporal Peterson, who had gone on duty from Bible Hill that morning, was driving up that area towards Wentworth and crossed paths on the road with Wortman, who was driving the mock vehicle in the other direction. Corporal Peterson passed Wortman on the road, radioed to dispatch or to the other members that he thought he saw the killer, but unfortunately, Corporal Peterson took a little time before he did a U-turn and turned around to follow the mock cruiser. Traveled 1.2 kilometers. That's a fairly significant distance if you're trying to make a quick U-turn and follow somebody. He said it was because it was on a turn and he was worried that if he turned too quickly he would be a target for the killer. Not quite sure what to make of that. This is going to be one of the difficult questions I think the Commission is going to have to answer. That seemed to take a long time, and then as it will come into when we talk about the Fishers, the police again set up at a distance, didn't aggressively engage the situation, even though there certainly seemed to be a danger involved. And then we saw this earlier on in the Portapique immediate situation where, officers were staging, they were holding back, they were, sheltering in place rather than aggressively pursuing. And, I know the commission is going to have to make recommendations about future training and planning and operational strategies. One is going to be to the extent to which officers should be aggressive in those situations and go in and put themselves at risk. Difficult situation individually, but it's something the commission is going to have to confront. In sports, one thinks of people, at the end of a game, do you want the ball in your hands? Do you want the puck in your stick? Are you want to be that person or not? And there's some opportunities, but also dangers in those kind of scenarios. So I mentioned the Fishers, of course. So as we learned this morning, Corporal Peterson turned around to follow Wortman in the mock cruiser, quickly lost sight of him. Wortman, in fact, had turned into a driveway of the Fishers, not far away, whom he knew. It was a long driveway, about a quarter of a kilometer, and he was able to get up the driveway and park and essentially hide from anybody that was passing by in the roadway. And the Fishers had surveillance videos, and so we were able to see the killer's where he parked and walking in, had a rifle in his hand, possibly another gun in the other hand. It wasn't quite clear from the video. The Fishers had both called 911. In fact, Adam Fisher, when he found out a little bit about, he found out who the killer was that morning on social media, had called because he knew him, knew that he had a mock cruiser, or was planning to make one, and so was calling to alert the police to that fact. Then just really minutes later, the killer pulls into their yard. They both hide. Carol Fisher called 911, then Adam Fisher called again. Adam Fisher had a shotgun which he loaded and was prepared to use if the killer had gone into the home. He didn't. He knocked on the door, but then turned around and left. He left and returned, and didn't go south where Corporal Peterson had been traveling, and continued to travel towards the TransCanada Highway in Masstown, but then the killer went north, and then took Plains Road to the east. So an interesting scenario there. So he knew the Fishers, didn't have any apparent bad blood with them. My interpretation of that is that he just wanted to get away from Corporal Peterson and escape detection for a little while longer while he pursued his plans, whatever they may have been. Down south of there was a convergence of several RCMP vehicles, and there seems to be some confusion. Some officers were in an unfamiliar vehicle. The one vehicle with Constables Brown and Melanson was a unmarked vehicle and did not have GPS installed in it. This is going to be relevant when we come back on April 11th to deal with the Onslow Fire Hall situation, because that was where Constables Brown and Melanson parked some distance away, then approached and shot at the fire hall completely improperly. So, when we talk about being aggressive in situations, that is going to show the risks of being too aggressive. So certainly a balancing act for the police in all of these circumstances. So the police got together. Staff Sergeant McCollum says, "What are we doing here? This is where we're supposed to be. Let's get up to the property at 2896 Highway 4, where the Fishers lived." And they approached, and they had the ERT squad with them with their TAV armored vehicle, but again approached very slowly. Some snipers went through the woods. They sort of went very slowly up the driveway, and by the time they discovered that the killer had left, he had been gone for quite some time, and in fact had already committed his next murder of Kristen Beaton on Plains Road. So some questions arise from this. There were, I think the report said, 40 officers staged at the Fishers. Why so many? Why weren't they blocking off roads. You know, they couldn't have been completely certain because he wasn't there that he was still there. Why so many in that situation? Where was the helicopter? What was the helicopter doing during this time? You would think that the helicopter would have been the most valuable asset at this point, being able to, you know, fly very quickly over all of the scenes and figure out where the killer was going. But that didn't seem to be an effective tool for the police at any point really in this situation. And there was no real, no apparent effort anyway to block off any of those other roads. You know, lots of different ways the killer could have gone and did. So next we know that the killer went north from the Fishers and then east on Plains Road through to Burt. We see some video of the killer going through there from Angelina's Pizza and some other locations, commercial locations in Burt. And we see the killer going very slowly through the community, some vehicles in front of the killer's mock RCMP vehicle and some behind, including Miss O'Brien. And of course nobody knew that this was a fake police car because the broadcast hadn't been, no broadcast had been made except for I think a Twitter post at that point, which looked like Miss Beaton had seen and posted to the VON Facebook page, Facebook chat group. So several vehicles in fact had passed by when the killer had pulled over Kristen Beaton and also Miss O'Brien. So some very near misses there. Makes you wonder what the killer's intentions were at that point, whether it was you know, certainly not targeted to them individually, but they were pulled over. Miss Beaton was already pulled over, so it was easy to do that, it would seem. And then Miss O'Brien, I think, was approached by the police, the mock police vehicle. So certainly had there been an emergency alert issued, again, one would imagine that any number of these vehicles passing by, these citizens would have contacted the dispatch, the 911, to inform the police of what was happening, or perhaps taken some independent action, who knows. But we know now that the killer left then Plains Road after killing Miss Beaton and Miss O'Brien, proceeded down McElmond Road south towards the combined Highway 2, Highway 4, which takes you from Portapique back in towards Truro, and next and past the Onslow Fire Hall. The killer went past the Onslow Fire Hall, and we'll hear on April 11th all of what took place there. Well, we'll hear the Commission's version of that. I'll be watching that very closely. In fact, planning to attend in person on that date in Halifax to hear the presentation and speak to some of the people that may be there as well. So we'll be watching that one very closely. I visited the Onslow Fire Hall personally, spoke to some of the witnesses, and so we'll be watching that situation very closely. So lots of difficult testimony this morning. I know Mr. Burrill was, he seemed to be getting emotional at times in the course of his presentation, a very somber presentation as it was. So difficult to hear, and especially difficult to see the very close calls that were, you know, the close encounters that the police had with the killer that morning in the Glenholme area. Potentially, you know, potential opportunities to have ended things much earlier and saved some more lives. So we'll see what the Commission does with that, and we'll hear from witnesses hopefully to fill in any of the gaps that were identified here with officers and why they did certain things. So we'll wait to hear when that comes along. So that's all for now. I'll be back April 11th, certainly to cover the Onslow Fire Hall situation. If anything arises in the meantime, I'll certainly notify people of that through Twitter or through videos if there's something extensive to cover. I encourage you to catch up on the media. I know Paul Palango had a piece in Frank this morning, and the Halifax Examiner, CTV, and CBC all had extensive pieces on today as well, as did Saltwire. So all good articles out there to fill in some of the details of these situations. So that'll be back. I'll be back on April 11th, certainly, and perhaps in the meantime. And until then, we'll see you then. We'll see you next time.